I want to go back to the peace and love that you would extend to Arabs who are being brainwashed and to hate Jews. How would you deprogram? Because I think that's the silent, I don't want to say majority. It's a lot of Arabs, Palestinians who have a different narrative. They've been brainwashed to believe that, Jews are not from Judea. They are from Europe and they're colonizers and the world felt bad for them. And there are a lot of people in the West who believe this kind of ridiculous narrative that it was this, the Jewish people were persecuted by the Nazis, and therefore let's give them a place because otherwise, they have nowhere else to live. What are we going to do? But this is like a new phenomena. They've just basically erased 2,500 years of Jewish history. What do you do to someone who has been raised to believe that? Because that's probably the majority of Palestinians today who are raised to believe that we are usurpers and colonizers of the land. And I understand what you would do with those who commit crimes and those who commit acts of terror, and I don't disagree with that approach. But what would you do with the majority of Palestinians who just feel like we took their land and want their own state as a result? That's why I think so many Jews are in favor of this. It seems like the logical thing. Give them a state and we'll have a state. Now, I happen to agree, security-wise, I think if we don't learn from Gaza, then we're just being, fools to think that that we have a peace partner here. We don't have one, unfortunately. But we made peace with Egypt. We made peace with Jordan. It's a cold peace, but it's held out. But they were a separate country, right? And they had their own independence, their own sovereignty. The Palestinians don't, and they still claim they won it. So what do you do with the millions of Palestinians who feel they have a legit right to their own sovereignty in their own land against a people that they think just came from Europe to take it? How do we, how do we change that narrative?
So the first thing that needs to happen, and probably one of the biggest disasters that happened in the Oslo Accords, was that Israel used to have direct relationships with the tribal leaders within Israel. And so what does that mean? The tribes, let's say right next to my farm, there's one village named Rashida, and there's one village named Seir. And about a month ago, every night I would hear gunfiring because those two villages are at war with each other for some internal tribal war between these two Arab clans. Now, those two Arab clans, and this is just an example, have no real national cohesion. That is a Western concept that has been imposed on the Middle East. And so there's no need for a two-state solution because there's no need for it. But what is happening? Let's say like this. The people that are in power in the world, whoever they are, if they're corporations, if they're politicians, if they're nation states, whoever is in power, people that are in power want to maintain the status quo of whatever exists right now, because whatever exists right now keeps them in power. So there's a conflict right now between Jews and Arabs in the land of Israel, and there is a massive agenda to keep that conflict going. There's not really a sincere desire for peace that these politicians speak of. On the contrary, the last time that the Biden administration gave millions of dollars to the Palestinian Authority, now the terrorism has gone up in Israel, as you can see by the news. Why? Because they're
Yeah.
being paid to do terror. The families of the terrorists get
Right.
12,000 shekels on average every month if they kill a Jew. So the Biden administration has now paid the Arabs in Israel to go and commit crimes against Israel. Was that their intention? Maybe yes, maybe no.
Just a question: the Taylor Force Act, that was something my friend Sander Gerber was a big part of. That hasn't stopped it, or it was enforced for a little while. The Taylor Force Act was basically during the Trump era to keep that money from the Palestinian Authority that we know was going to pay, to pay for slay.
Yeah. Well,
That's just off.
if you look at the charts of the terror from the Trump administration when the funding stopped and the Biden administration when the funding continued, you will see a direct correlation to Jewish terror acts of terror against Jews in the land of Israel. And so what I'm saying is that if you want to bring peace to Israel, then Israel as a nation needs to establish once again its direct contact with the tribal leaders that are within the land of Israel. And then taxes should be given directly to the tribes. Abu Mazen today, the head of the Palestinian Authority, together with his children, own about $1 billion in their bank account. $1 billion in their own, and who knows what other assets that they have. I'm just talking about cash. $1 billion. Where did that money come from? It came from all of the different places, the Europe funds, and the. Well, does he have an interest then to really bring peace? It looks like he's making bank. And he's not. Has he helped the impoverished Palestinians with all of the funding that they have? No, it's going to pay more terrorists right now to go and create more conflict. So there's an agenda and a reason to perpetuate the conflict in Israel. And the only way to put an end to the conflict is to establish direct ties with the local leadership of the Arabs of every village, of every tribe, because the heads of those tribes truly care about their tribe. So if you were to give them direct funding to build schools, you would be able to do that. And then you would say, listen, we're going to help you build your school. But we ask you to not use the UN, UNRWA funded school books because they're teaching you anti Semitic, horrible, brainwashed hate towards Jews. Here are some textbooks that we can work with together to sort of mold the next generation to work alongside the Jewish people. If we trust politicians to bring peace among people, we are lost.
And Jeremy, is that something you want to do? Because you're on the front lines. You're saying we got to pull this out of the power players, the politicians, because they're just they stand to gain from the status quo. So we need to change the status quo. We need to have people on the ground, people living in these areas talking to each other. Is that one of the reasons you went out there? Do you want to do that? Is that an interest of yours?
That is exactly what I'm doing. Meaning, I can't change the politics, but I can live as an example. I try in my own life, to the best of my ability, particularly for my children, to manifest and act as the way I would want the world to be. So I try to live the life of a Jew that I think the way the Jewish people should live. And so I believe that it involves, meaning my partner Yossi at the Aru Goat Farm is fluent in Arabic. So is my other partner Roni. We have amazing relationships with the Arabs that are around us. Now, I'm going to be honest. Sometimes we have fights with them. Sometimes they go into our grazing grounds. And we have to have a fight about that. And we tell them, no, don't do that. And then we have like, okay, it's okay. That's fine. Neighbors have fights. That's cool. That's all right. But that's real. It's not some superimposed UN Resolution 242 as if that has any relevance to the Arab shepherd in the mountains of Judea. It doesn't. But what does have relevance? Neighbors, friends, partners, business associates. So when we work together and we build together, then there really will be peace together. And when someone steps out of line, there needs to be immediate justice. And that they know. Right now, the terrorists, the way that I feel at least, harta'a is the word in Hebrew. There's no fear factor anymore. There's no, they're just, there's either a terror attack or an attempted terror attack almost every day in Israel right now. That should be unheard of. Israel needs to do everything within its power to stop that immediately.